some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Halakas MD, Melanie Bridgeton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is.
Very dangerous. Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps.
Enjoy your
Extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another?
Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please
What?
come back when you can afford to make
no,
a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
Come
trouble.
on. My
I'm
kids
sorry
are
you're
starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Hello, everyone. Good day, good evening, good morning, depending where you may be. My name is Joe Kiernan. This is Researchers Radio Live. I'm very happy to be here today. I have Tim C. with us producing. We have returning to the program, Mr. Dave Stinnett, hosting the show as well. And also we're going to be speaking to a good friend of the show, a good friend of mine as well, Mr. Gary Travis. And he has a very interesting story to tell us about some local occurrences that I may have been part of. We'll get to him in just one moment. Everyone, I'm happy to tell us Dave is back. And Dave, how's it going up there, buddy?
What's up, Joe?
Man, how was the event? So tell us, how was the turnout? Did you have a good time?
The conference was banging. Actually, I think it's probably one of the best conferences I've ever put on. I think, all the speakers were it was just a really good mix of personalities with the speakers, and everybody was very cool and very gracious. but because we're kind of old school UFO, so we put some people up at a local friend's house who's my coordinator. So it's very homey, and people actually get to talk. And we had a speakers dinner the night before, where just basically some of the Congress comes in, and everybody has a big buffet dinner, and you get actually to rub elbows and pick people's brains. But it was a nice mix of like secular researchers and biblical researchers, and everybody was keeping an open mind, and it was a hell of a good time. So
A rare event, a rare event to have that many good minds in a room.
Well, it's funny because we had press in the audience. We weren't aware of it, and I guess the editor for the particular online blog, he seemed to kind of get it, but for an in-depth one, there's another girl reporter, and she didn't really seem to grasp it. And it was actually the first conference where people were wailing on me about the conference who hadn't gone to the conference. But one guy was saying that basically I put up a bunch of shill speakers, and I couldn't fill a 50-seat room. And I rebutted the guy, I refuted the guy, saying, well, these guys are all like top guys in their field, and they're known internationally. One. Two is there was 100 seats in that room, and they were packed from the time that conference started to the time it ended. So basically, I just wailed on him and let that be at that point in the game. But
well, I heard all good things. It sounded like everyone had a really good time. I'm happy you did too.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because there's a UK researcher. His name is Julian Salt, and he does like government stuff, New World Order type stuff. But he rolled in. He was in Connecticut for the weekend, and he rolled down to the conference, and he was just like, you know how you could tell it's a good conference? He goes, because nobody left their seat for the entire conference. I was just like, yep, true.
That's a good way to put it.
And that was an all-day conference as well. I mean, how many hours did it go on?
It was from like 9 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time for people to be sitting down and keeping their attention.
Well, it's funny. I'd like to actually throw this out to the chat room and ask their opinion of it, because there's quite a different train of thoughts now. Originally, we used to have a 2-day conference. We cut that down to 1 day because it doesn't burn up a weekend, and people seem to like the 1 day. They really like the 1 day format. But two is that we used to give everybody 2 hours to speak, and 2 hours is enough time for them to kind of get out their point and everything. But 2 hours is a long time to be sitting for one speaker. So the academics, basically, they want an hour. Give us an hour of the bullet points and all your specific facts, this, that, and the other. And I've seen those types, and frankly, in the UFO field, it's as much storytelling as it is anything. So to give a guy an hour, he barely can get his thought out.
Right.
So I've been making him an hour and a half, and then 15 minutes question and answer, and then you have a 15-minute break.
It's tough to tell any story right in an hour or less, especially on their level. So Tim, you weren't able to make it.
Oh boy, I had the worst flu I've ever had in my life, and both myself and my girlfriend had it, and yeah, we were really upset. We wanted to go so bad, but
you were wiped out that whole week.
Yeah, I was.
Well, what was cool is Sunday morning, Robert Schock and Rob Skiba. Now, Robert Schock is, by and large, a secular, university guy, and Rob, I mean, he grew up in a family where his folks are theologians. So, I mean, they're both, but they're going back with all the hybrid animals and the Hittite stuff, and they're going back between different reliefs, and they're like, yeah. But it was kind of cool to see like a budding relationship with these two guys, because they're kind of on different ends of the stick, but they're willing to listen to each other, which was the cool part.
Right.
And I usually say that, especially with being a UFO guy who does it from a biblical perspective, is that you don't have to buy into it or believe it. Just understand that narrative. So if that presents itself to you down the road, you can say, yeah, I was talking to that guy, or I was listening to that lecture, and he was talking about something like this. That's
Right. I mean,
Well,
all good scientists appreciate another's good theory. You don't have to necessarily believe it, but
well, you get into it with some of these guys, and they believe in aliens, but they don't believe in the whatever religious text they want to believe in, which seems kind of bizarre to me. But uh, I'm just like, well, you're a big scientist, and you're into this, that, and the other. And they're like, yeah, I'm very scientific. I'm just like, well, Sir Isaac Newton, right? And they're like, oh yeah, most of our modern physics, and I'm just like, well, he was a big Bible eschatology, end times buff. I mean, big time. I mean, when
well,
his stuff went on, when his prophecies for the end times stuff went on sale, Israel jumped at it, and they have it under lock and key in Jerusalem. So,
wow. Yeah, I bet they do.
Mhm.
And we had our man Tim C here. This little sneaky guy snuck his way off this weekend to a little UFO event in Pine Bush, which was much closer to home.
Yeah, it
And,
really wasn't much of a UFO event.
What
It's
was
a
going
UFO
on there?
festival. Actually, it's really a town festival. Pine Bush. Everybody knows Pine Bush. You think of UFOs, and
Yeah.
the town really did embrace it. And
So
they have a parade.
they have embraced it, because I remember
yeah.
a while ago they didn't even enjoy it,
Well-
the discussion, because they were made fun of.
The truth
I've had
is,
him on my Facebook page like for at least a year or two.
I mean, I've met people from Pine Bush, and when they say, if you say, where are you from, and they say Pine Bush, the next question is always, have you seen any aliens? And they've heard this question a million times. And
no, it really has. Honestly, it's a tourist thing, really. When they have a parade, and it was pretty packed. I mean, I'm a small business owner in the area, so I went, to represent my business, really. And I mean, it's a good day it's a family day, really, is what it is.
well, it's pretty cool, because next week we have Linda Zimmerman on.
That's right.
Author, and she wrote a book on the history of
Pine Bush. Well, not necessarily just Pine Bush,
sightings.
but the Hudson Valley.
Correct.
The book really does go all into. I mean, all the surrounding cities, and as far down as Westchester, Rockland County, up to Poughkeepsie, Kingston, Monticello
I'm looking
area.
forward to it. I'm looking forward to having someone from.
And
hearing
she
about
actually
that
was a
area.
speaker.
Kecksburg has one of their little
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
shindigs in their town too.
Dave. I lost you.
I was gonna say Kecksburg has a little festival in their town for their UFO crash.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they have it in the local fire department, but they have one.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I'm glad they embraced it. Honestly, because like I said, I remember the time in Pine Bush when they really didn't appreciate the conversation. To be honest with you.
Well, that was because the tourists that it was attracting were they weren't welcomed with open arms, because at that time it was pretty active. The people were scared, man. Not everybody was scared. A lot of people were just oh wow, it's big and it's exciting, but there were a lot of people that were concerned, because what the heck are these things flying around and causing such a ruckus in the town?
It's very true.
See, that's the other thing too, guys, is that's a differential between today and then. Because I always say, like, during like the mid 80s, even before that, in the 70s, 80s, up until about the mid 90s, if there was a UFO flap that was local, every UFO researcher and their brother would be out at that area. But like nowadays, there can be spots like up in Western Pennsylvania. We all know Allison; she's got stuff, but people don't come out to these things anymore. And it used to be like half the world would flock to these places, and I could see where the locals would get a little frosted, because there's a lot of commotion all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
There was a
at
lot
least
of people from the
come out.
city and Connecticut and whatnot. This is a small farmers town, really, and that's pretty much the way it was in the 1980s.
yeah.
It's not much different now, but it has grown quite a bit since then.
Well, we've had Al Santariga on the show, and he's experienced a whole lot of stuff in the Hudson Valley. Tim, he's from the other side of the river in Dutchess County.
Poughkeepsie area, right?
Yeah, and he's had quite a few interesting stories. While we're on the UFO subject, and I really don't want to keep our friend Gary waiting any longer, I'd like to bring Mr. Gary Travis into the program. He's definitely the most courageous pilot I've ever known. To be honest with you, he's the only pilot I know of that could say he's chased UFOs with his plane. It's a very unique statement one can make, and I envy him for it. I can't come close to that one. Mr. Gary Travis, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Joe. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine. Everyone, Gary's calling in. He's away from home, and he's in a nice location on the beach, and he has access of viewing the night sky tonight and a few other people. You spoke to someone else you were telling us right before the show, right, Gary? You spoke to someone tonight that was looking?
Yes, a friend of mine, Jason Bells, he's actually in Myrtle tonight, and he's seen the lights many times. He takes vacations in Myrtle and Holden Beach, and we're both actually looking at the same time. We both sent messages to each other to, if either of us see anything, to message the other immediately so we can be ready. So he's in a Myrtle. I'm in Ocean High Beach right now, which is probably like 10 miles to the east of Jason.
Well, I think it's pretty cool that you guys are able to connect like that in this day and age with technology like that. How it just happened over the last few hours. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm actually at the same beach. I don't know how many people have seen the video that I made about 3 years ago.
I'm going to put your video into the chat room right now.
Okay. I'm an exact location. It was October of 2011. I was out. This is actually the fifth time I'd seen these same UFOs. The first 4 times I didn't have my camera ready. The fifth time I was out on the deck here watching a beautiful full moon coming up. So I got the camera out, so I filmed it out. And in the middle of the video, these orange orbs started appearing in the ocean. So I had a total of about a dozen orbs in that 20-minute video. So I made a short 20-second clip that had 4 orbs in it, and I sent that to the WMBF news station. That's where it all started, and that's how I guess the video got around, and then you know what else happened to that, Joe?
Well,
you know the rest of the story, Joe.
I know the rest of the story, and it never gets old to me. But tell everyone who didn't hear last time when you were on the program, where you saw the orange lights in the sky that are commonly reported in Myrtle Beach, that it's becoming more known now, and a lot of help from you. I've seen you on the Myrtle Beach news at least 5 times, and you're not even from the Myrtle Beach area. so you know, well, it's pretty funny seeing you on the news. It's sometimes I think they just play old audio clips or something.
Well, that's amazing. You know, I live in Raleigh, but I have 3 warehouses I manage. And I come to Myrtle on a regular basis. And, I was just lucky that the time I made my video, I was actually in Myrtle that day just to fire on my employees. And I guess that was good timing. So I was home that night when I got that video out and video camera out and caught those on video. But as far as the sightings, I've had 5 sightings that were very strange indeed. And I had other sightings that were just a split second. I was like, what did I just see? So I just kind of brushed those off, you know. I've had 5 sightings, which if I had my video camera, I could have pretty interesting stuff to show people. The 4th sighting is what everybody likes to hear about, is when I was flying my plane into Ocean Airport.
Right.
I was in the landing pattern for the runway, and I looked to my left. You know, I'm always looking for the planes to clear the area, and I'm on the radio. We don't have a control tower at Ocean Island. You just kind of talk to other airplanes and make sure they wasn't each other. But there's nobody in the air at all when I'm in my landing approach. So I look to my left over the ocean, and I see one of these orange lights I've already seen on 3 previous occasions. The best part about it, I was so happy. I was actually in my plane at this point, and I said, well, now I've got a chance to get closer to one of these things and take a look at it. So I flew over the ocean. And I estimate I flew toward that light for about 45 seconds before it just vanished completely. was about 2 miles out of the water, and flew around for a few more minutes, hoping it'd come back, but it was gone. And then that story got out to some people, and then that's when the studio called and wanted me to tell my story on the episode of Uncovering Aliens we were both in, Jim. It was a lot of fun, of course. I think I'm disappointed about that episode of Uncovering Aliens is they spent only half an hour in Myrtle Beach. They didn't show any of your great videos you've already taken, and they didn't even show my video. I thought they would because I gave them a copy of it, but hey, I guess they had some other agenda.
Now, can you tell us the time that when you were flying and when you saw the orange lights lighting up when you were in flight? When that night happened, how far away from your aircraft were the lights? And this was, I believe that we had a question from the chat room from Frank. He said, how close were the lights to you? He might have been referring to when you were on the ground. Maybe you could estimate that for us, and then maybe you could tell us also how far they were from you when you saw them with your plane?
Yeah. I think on every single sighting I had, either on the ground or in the air, I think I've been within at least 3 miles of these lights. Just it's tough to guesstimate it, but if the lights were approximately the size of my plane, I would say they were about 3 miles away. They're totally silent, of course. Sometimes they move, sometimes they're stationary. Anyway, I was say within 3 miles of each time. So if that's the case, if I flew toward this airplane, if I flew an airplane toward this light for almost a minute, traveling 120 miles an hour, I must have been at least within 1 mile of this light before it vanished.
When the orange lights were lighting up out over the ocean,
right?
You think that they were about 3 miles from you?
That's my best guess. About 3 miles away, and about the same altitude I was flying.
Okay. And when you turned the plane in that direction, how long do you think you were flying? Were you flying in their direction for 30 seconds or 60 seconds?
I would say 45 seconds. I first see light to my left. I banked my plane directly toward it and flew straight over the ocean in the direction of the light. At that point, I was probably flying 15 seconds before I was heading toward it. And then I said another 45 seconds at least. So I would have traveled almost 2 miles toward the light before it vanished. It's just, everyone's seen these lights. They describe them, very similar in your descriptions. Just big glowing orange lights that really don't look like they could be flares. A lot of people say they're flares, but when you see two lights kind of on each other and go really fast, I just trying to rule out flares when I see that kind of thing.
Right. When they assemble into some sort of formation and rotate, it's pretty difficult at that point to say they're flares. Especially when they're a consistent color too. It's a tough one. It's tough. Yeah,
a lot of times they appear suddenly, and they disappear just as suddenly. They don't seem to fizzle out like a flare might do. It's like somebody flips a switch on and off.
Yep, they blip in, they blip out.
They do.
And now the one I saw when I was flying that one flight, it was already out there. When I turned my head to the left, it was already there. I didn't see it appear out of nowhere. It was already there on the horizon.
Mr. Charles Lamoureux is tuned in. He's saying hello to everyone. Hello, Charles. It's nice to have him listen in. Gary Charles is in Vancouver on the opposite side of the continent, and he's done some really great work filming some lights out there on his end. And I'm also quite envious of his video setup that he has. He's really upped his gear in a whole new way and gotten really creative. I don't know if I told you, Gary, he's the gentleman who we've had on the show before, that he has a hexacopter that he's rigged with not only HD camera but night vision as well, and that's just the beginning of it. He's a great guy, and hello, Charles. How's it going, buddy? So, Gary, these orange lights, I know they're remarkable. They're incredible. When you're around in Ocean Isle, have you spoken, do other people around the area know of these lights, or do you seldom hear the conversation of them?
Well, I hear them quite often. The one I think of mostly was there was a guy working at the airport. The same day the film crew came in to just take me out, I could take them up and they want to film me flying around the area. This guy working at the airport said, "Yeah, I've seen these lights too on many occasions." And it's like everybody here seems to have seen them, and it's just like a normal thing. It's just they're so used to it. It's no big deal anymore.
We have another question from the chat room. Hello, Frank. Frank asks, Gary, do you see these lights mostly over the ocean or inland?
I've seen, I would have to say I would say that 90% of them are over the ocean. I have seen a few that were flying in them.
But now, in fairness, most of your time is on the coast when you're down here in this area, right?
Right.
Yeah, and even I don't really go inland too much.
Hey, Gare, are there other pilots like yourself, like independent, airplane pilots that have told you that they're seeing the same stuff out there?
Yeah, now that I've been on TV, now I have other friends of mine, they're coming clean and saying, yeah, they've seen them too. It's like they don't want to talk about it, but now I want to do it, so maybe that's a good thing, Maybe if I'm, willing to do it, or just let more people talk about these things.
Yeah, it usually takes one person to step out, and other people at that point feel kind of comfortable, and they'll step out and they'll talk about it.
Gary was one of those people for me, because when I had saw things a few times, I was trying to pay attention to the news and see if anyone else was saying anything, because again, I was kind of new to the area, so I didn't know too many people really. And I saw Gary on the news, and I said, that's incredible, because it was just he had a remarkable story, and he was describing exactly what I had seen, and he's such a credible guy. And I said, my goodness, it brought some validation to myself, and I was also gave me a little bit of courage to try to speak up about it at that point. Because up until seeing Gary on the news here, I didn't say anything to anybody. I was just waiting for it to happen again, really. So thanks, Gary. You're the man.
Well, the funny thing is, if all the people who don't mind talking about these things, my family doesn't really want to talk about it. It's like, it's just they have no interest in the lights. They saw me on TV. They just kind of like nod their heads. Like, yeah, okay. They don't they have no interest whatsoever. Sometimes I just wonder if some people are just afraid of the unknown and they just don't want to talk about it.
Were you concerned when you were in flight and you saw these orange lights and you banked your aircraft at the lights and you gunned it? You went right at these things. Actually,
I did have a brief thought cross my mind as I was flying toward the line. I tried to block it out because I wanted to get closer, but when I was flying toward this light, I remember reading stories about people seeing UFOs, and they'll be in their cars, and the car engines will just die, all of a sudden the radios will die. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, heck, man, this wouldn't be good if I'm over the ocean and engine stops. Well, so anyway, I didn't want to think about it too much. I just wanted to get a closer look, and luckily nothing happened. Everything was running smooth. But after this happened, I met another guy who he was some type of investigator for UFOs, and he sent me a report of two guys flying plane somewhere now up in Virginia. They were flying in Virginia. This is well inland in Virginia, probably 100 miles inland. They were flying around, probably 100 miles from my hometown now, and an orange light appeared off their right wing. Their engine immediately started running well. The radios went dead, and the light, for about 15 seconds, the plane was really running well. And finally, the light just disappeared, and everything went like normal. So that was, I'm thinking, I may not, if I see a light of ocean, I may not go after the next one. I'm not chasing over the land, but maybe I'll think twice before I go over the ocean again.
We have another question. Let me see. We got 2 of them here. But Gary, do you think that these might be drones?
Well, I don't think so. If they're drones, I don't know why they have orange lights. They look too. I think they're too large to be. I mean, I'm just estimating it's the distance and size of these things. But I just can't imagine the drones making the maneuvers I've seen them do.
Yeah.
And what would the purpose be of having a drone out there over the ocean?
Now, is there a certain time of day when you see these lights, Gary?
The sightings have varied between like maybe 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before sunset, or I'd say 10 p.m.
Yeah.
That's about the time frame.
It's a great answer. I would have said the same thing, really, because I've seen it one time really good, about 15 minutes before sunset, where the sky's still blue, but the sun was down.
Right.
So I guess it was after sunset for me, but it was still plenty of light in the sky.
And the funny thing is, guys, is that time frame, somewhere between dusk and 10, always seems to be the bewitching hour, no matter where you're at in the country.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's interesting. Now, the very first sighting was about 15 minutes before sunset. I was sitting on the deck out here, and I was eating some pizza, and I saw an orange light in the distance. It looked pretty high up in the sky, maybe a few miles away. My very first thought was an airplane approaching the airport here with a landing light on. But then I said, wait a minute, landing lights aren't orange. And so I looked back and it was gone. I said, well, that was weird. And then 2 minutes later, I saw another orange light in a different part of the sky. It lasted a couple of minutes. And even that first sighting, I kind of brushed it off until about 3 weeks later when I was out here at night and I saw the orange lights making all kinds of crazy maneuvers. So,
we had one more question I want to get to, Gary. Have you seen these lights in multiples and traveling in formation?
Yes, I've seen them in multiples. I've seen them. I think the most I've seen in sky at the same time is maybe four at the same time, and 3 of them form a triangle shape.
I've seen them kind of do the similar things, but I'm still very jealous of your angle from the skies. But now you have the GoPro in the plane, so you have a camera ready to go now. And I see something every now and again, Gary. I do see you taking selfies while driving that plane, flying that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I always take a selfie, probably every flight. But it's the GoPros. I won't have it for about a month, and I've already. I think I fill up a splash card fast, man.
I've just been getting a kick out of this whole term selfie lately. It's getting way out of control. I saw something on the news. They were talking about a famous celebrity, and they said such and such has made a press release via selfie. I said, "You've got to be kidding me!" What level does it get to? I never even considered such a thing.
Yeah, I think it's awful when leaders, and I'm talking leaders of the free world, start doing selfies, and it's obviously it's mainstream media now, but and everybody's doing it. But I don't know.
Well, I
can't wait to take you flying with me soon, and we can get some selfies together.
Soon enough. I know it's going to be soon enough. I know you didn't have your plane down here this time, but it's next time, and I'm going to hold you to it.
Well, in a couple of weeks, I'm sure we'll be flying together.
Oh, that's going to be a good time. We'll get lucky. How many cameras can I fit in that plane? What's
I'm
your weight
sure
limit in there?
Oh yeah, we can load up 800 pounds in there, so we can probably get all your cameras in.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to it. We have a few other things going on tonight, Gary, and I want you to hang in there. If hopefully you'll do the whole program with us. And,
Oh, definitely, man. I'm definitely going to be here.
Worst case scenario, you'll get some humor out of it. I assure you.
I actually have a good aeronautical story for Gary.
Oh, all right. Let's take it from the top, Dave.
Well, Gary probably knows Stearman Aircraft. I grew up around people who flew airplanes, and I grew up around airports. But Gary Stearman, whose family used to make Stearman airplanes, he runs on television on the cable channel. It's called Prophecy in the News. But he does a lot of prophecy with Tom Horn and all those type of guys. But last year he gave like his first testimony. He was flying a new Cessna. I forget, from somewheres in Texas to Lubbock, and as he's in flight, he gets a red panel light, and he's like, "That's not good." He wasn't getting any juice, so he turned off all of his instrumentation, I guess, to so he wasn't straining the battery or something to that effect. And he says he's flying along and he sees a glint off in the distance, and he figures, oh, those are those new chromy C-140s that they're flying out of Lubbock. And he goes, just then I hear, and if you look to your left, you'll see a UFO. And he says, I just laughed to myself. And he goes, and then I heard it again. He goes, and that's when I realized, wait a second, none of my instrumentation's on. Where did that come from? And he goes, at that point, I looked over to my left, and there was a flying saucer, an actual saucer, off his left wingtip. So he tried to move over to see if he could see any rivets or anything like that. Couldn't see anything. And then he heard in his head, don't get any closer. Well, he comes into the airport and he lands. The Cessna guy gives him a bunch of chin music because he's late. And Gary thought he arrived early. And the whole time he's still seeing this thing in the air as he's on the ground. Well, he has the meeting with the Cessna guy, comes out, and the mechanic said, hey, what did you do to our plane? And Gary says, well, it's only got like 10 hours on it. They said, the alternator belt is laying in the bottom of the cowl, but it's still calibrated for the belt. There's no way this belt could come off. So Gary thought whatever this thing was that he saw, that it was looking after him because he was in a pinch, and evidently he had a little bit of missing time. But for a Bible-y guy to come out and give one of these type of things, and he's comes from a pilot family, a fairly renowned pilot family, it had a little weight to it. So it was kind of interesting.
Well, that's fascinating. Yeah, you never know.
That was incredible.
But I know what you mean about people being afraid of it, Gary, and it's just one of those subjects. And much of the field, I think the greater part of the field is the psychological field. It's not that everybody seems to know that there's something going on, but it just it's like a passing glance, and they don't want to deal with it. And I know a lot of very, very heady, intelligent people from the university level, and although they're aware of it, they try to steer away from the subject. I mean, even a lot of well-known UFO speakers that I'm familiar and friends with, over the years, they've kind of steered away from that part of the subject because people don't want to talk about it. I mean, there's a certain community that does, but by and large, people are uncomfortable with the subject, and that's another study in itself, because why should you be? I mean, everybody, if this is going on, you figure people should be interested in it, and it seems to be the opposite on some occasions.
Yeah, I agree. It's the fear of the unknown. It's hard for me to understand, because I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to know. I wish people would come clean. If our government knows about this, which they probably do, I wish they would just come clean with it.
Well, Gary, it's funny if you think about all of the, well, let's just say you got ghosts, you got all the paranormal, okay, Bigfoot, whatever, all the cryptozoology. not most people see that kind of thing. There are literally thousands and thousands of videos of UFOs or what people think UFOs are or on the internet, and it's the one area that that really is the most mysterious. I always thought that was something incredible to me. To me, that's incredible. That just in the past 5 to 10 years, really, how much it's blown up.
I've heard somebody say that behind porn on the web, UFO stuff is the most searched stuff behind pornography. Which, if that's actually true, that's a pretty interesting little quip.
I wouldn't doubt it. The proliferation of cameras and video phones, and everybody's got a video camera in their phone now. I mean, it's just to me, it's only a matter of time before there's videos out there that just can't be disputed, and people just have to wake up and realize what's going on.
Yeah, we've been saying that for like the last 2 decades, Gare.
Well, I think there must have been some progress.
I've been filming the little orange balls way farther inland. I mean, it's not like, they're all, whatever they are, they're all over the place. I've got stuff from out in the Cape, some of the Capes in Florida, where it's just a great big bright blinding light, and it's just sitting there hovering for 20 minutes. So, I mean,
well, I've read reports recently. There were red orbs, orange orbs have been seen around Raleigh. Other people seen them in Raleigh. I haven't seen them, but so there are a lot of inland reports, no doubt.
Yeah, I hear these a lot of other people reporting these orange ones, or at least they were. And it's in the beginning for me. It seemed like there would be sightings here in the Carolinas for 2 or 3 days, and then I would see or hear same occurrence a few days later in like Oklahoma and Texas. Then I would hear West Coast days later, and I thought I was seeing a pattern with that, but then all that just changed, and I didn't see that happen anymore.
Is anybody ever? Is there a statistic out there where the percentage of people? What percent of UFOs actually reported? How many people see something and report it? What do you think? 5%?
Dave, what do you think?
How many people what?
What do you think? How many people do you think actually see something and report it? What do you think? Would you put an approximation on something like that?
I mean, the percent of people. So just think of what's really being seen out there, but they never report it. I mean,
I think 5%. I think 5% would probably be too high. Most people see it and they probably just kind of blow it off. And again, there's that psychological component. But I mean, people do seem to be reporting it a bit more than they used to report, because there's now ways to do it. I mean, there's a jillion websites to report it. I remember reporting on one a number of years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I went to just search my post in the MUFON. I think I put it on the MUFON CMS, and it was, and my account had turned up all over on a lot of people's different little websites, and they were discussing it. And I was just like, that's interesting, because basically these sites went and stole my account off of the MUFON CMS and stuck it on their sites. So I was just like, hey. But yeah,
Sorry,
that number's got to be pretty small. Maybe 5% is, I think, is probably high, but let's go with 5%.
So I wish I saw a lot more of the reports from people with orange lights, or really any lights. It's like it varies right now. It's not consistent. However, before I stray too far, when it comes to the reporting part, I could say for myself, when this started happening here, when I decided to go online and file a report, the first 2 times I did, I didn't even want to file the report, and I definitely didn't include any return information as my name or phone number or anything like that. I didn't want anyone calling me. I didn't want to get involved. I said this is, but I felt the urge that I had to send this in case there were other people looking for some corresponding evidence or some validation for what they had seen. And then I realized it helped a lot. And then the ball was rolling.
Researcher end of that, Joe. Thank you. But we always get mad because the people don't put the contact information, because if it's something that we're tracking and we're like, there it is, and the people will be, they'll put the information down, but they don't put a phone number or any contact information. And we're like, oh.
Well, I meant no harm, but it was in the sense, I think, on the psyche I had, that I felt, hey, I don't want any government people calling here about UFOs and things. But that's really what I thought. I said, I don't even want to send it in, but I'll send it. I just don't want anyone calling me about it. I don't want anyone coming here, and I meant authority-wise. But this was the psyche I had, was that this is what would happen.
Hey, Gary, Mike R. in the chat room had a question. He wanted to know, he said lots of pilots see UFOs on radar, but are afraid to report it because they may lose their job. What do you think about that? And I'll add to that, I know that as a pilot, you probably work for, if not one company, several companies. Is it an issue to lose? I mean,
I've never worked, even though I do have a commercial pilot's license, I've never worked for an airline or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was on that path to fly for a living when I got my commercial pilot's license. Then I got in my present business, which has been pretty good to me, so I just kind of stuck with that. But as far as pilots, there are pilots out there that I've talked to that they are afraid of maybe getting, having problems with their employers if they report these things. So they probably do keep it pretty hush-hush when they do see something.
Mm-hmm.
There is a big stigmata too, I'm sure, on the professional end too, because you, as a pilot, you have to be certain of what you're seeing, correct?
Well, yeah, when you
besides the obvious reasons.
When you're trained to be a pilot, you're trained to recognize different types of weather patterns or identification lights on other aircraft, but I'm pretty impressed with the pilots who do open up and tell them they've seen something strange. And you can go online and listen to all kinds of pilot reports and hear the recordings of the transmissions between the aircraft control and the pilots when they describe strange things.
You're right.
Well, you're definitely a big help. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot more people to speak out in time. As we all know, it's a slow machine, but you got to keep it moving, I suppose.
I'm sure people. I'm sure people have various reasons for not seeing things. It could be, they don't want their family to be ridiculed or whatever if they get them on the news. And I think even my own two kids. They actually are worried sometimes that their friends are going to make fun of them if they see their dad on TV talking about UFOs. But I don't get on TV and say I don't claim they're alien spacecraft.
Right.
I claim I say UFOs are a real thing. They're unidentified flying objects. And I'm not saying I know what it is. If I would love to get close enough to see something, I'll say, that's extraterrestrial. I haven't done that yet. But
you haven't claimed origin or what they may be. But they're pretty cool.
I mean, my mind's I'm not open to any possibility. It's a big universe out there.
And I know not far from where you are is also Mr. Christopher Bledsoe, and I know you've discussed with him. And we've had him on the program, as you know. And he's not too far.
He's a fine man. And,
yeah.
He's got an interesting story, and I look forward to talking to him more about that.
Yeah, he does have an interesting story. I really love he's always improving as a farmer. He's always just his photos, his vegetables always look fantastic, man.
Chris got a green thumb. There's no doubt about that.
Oh my goodness, it's like he's definitely honed his skills down very well. But I was really impressed because I had forgotten his story about the tree in his yard that had caught fire,
Oh yeah.
and he posted a picture of it today that it was another season had returned to life. And that's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting situation he had going on there.
I'll be visiting
and it's
Chris
not too
this summer.
that's still a go, huh?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's really not too far away. It's really not. And
No,
and really
that's a
it's right
relative, it's a relative
upstream
close.
from where Gary is right now. He's what's the name of that river? Cape Fear River. Right up the Cape Fear River. Yeah, and that's not too far from you.
Yeah, it's just I guess Chris lives about halfway between Raleigh and the coast here.
Yeah, he's
Near
Fayetteville, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, near Fayetteville.
Yeah,
On the Davidson River.
man,
Chris was a pilot too. Chris was a pilot. I'm not sure if he flies anymore, but he was a pilot.
yeah, that's absolutely right. I forgot about that. And
When you listen to his story, it is one of the most compelling event, really compelling accounts of basically it's not like he just saw it. He's got so much ins and outs in that story. It really is something to listen to if you ever get it.
I can't wait till Dave goes down there. I'm gonna show up and take a selfie of myself with you guys. I'm gonna have to photobomb that scene up there. But he's a great guy. He's gonna have to protect his garden because I'm very jealous of that. I mean, that guy. He's really got that. He's really got it going together, man. I'm very very impressed, and especially there's another guy, a friend of ours, and I hope he calls in tonight. Last week we had spoke. Aaron Thatcher's his name, and he's another guy, Gary, who was here in the Myrtle Beach area, and he was living in a condo with his girlfriend, and he saw these lights as well several times, and he's not claiming there's a direct correlation, nor am I. However, he moved up to the borderline, the state lines in the lower mountains there, and he's farming, and for self-sustaining, and if hopefully he will call in the second hour, because I believe he's switched to completely off the grid. And this all happened right after seeing those lights. And so it wasn't like he was a farmer or into any of this prior. So he just has a similar story to Mr. Bledsoe, but without the interactions that Chris Bledsoe had. But very interesting.
You think there's a connection here between seeing the lights and wanting to grow your own food? I mean, as far as
it's interesting because we're talking about like Mr. Bledsoe and Mr. Thatcher here, the two of them. These people were not farmers before, and I can't speak for Chris. However, for Aaron, he's doing his best to not have to purchase anything at a grocery store or anything like that, and also doing it as healthy as he can. And from what I understand with Chris is, he's really trying to do the same thing. And it's just there's very few people I meet that are compelled to begin such an effort. And it's just the two most recent ones I have met have a similar story, seeing orange lights and some sort of an interaction, and pretty much had a changing experience, in my opinion. I haven't investigated either guy, but it's at least I'm just stopping and trying to pay attention, and I think it's admirable either way. I think they're both doing fantastic things. It's some could say that they're bettering themselves. That's a good thing, I believe.
Yeah, the other end of that too is it's kind of like a stimulus overload, and it may reset you to kind of go back into a more basic, existence instead of getting caught up in the tech.
Right.
Still there?
Yeah. I think we're losing Dave in and out here. But I'm going to agree with Dave. I think what he was saying was, they're just. Oh, maybe we'll hear it from him in a minute. We're going to have to take a break, Gary. If you don't mind hanging in there, we'll be back in a break, folks. Talk to you in a minute.
Oh, but they continue to happen.
Dave, we're going to take a break right now, and we'll pick it up. Welcome back to Researchers Radio Live. This is Joe Kiernan, Dave Stinnett, Tim Stee, Gary Travis. We're all here tonight having a good discussion. Before we jump back into it, I'd like to remind everyone this is the largest listener-supported radio. We are financed, run, and this platform in which we are so graciously provided here at freedomslips.com is all run by the donations of the listeners. Please make your way to the website. I really strongly, even more so, encourage you to join the chat room and partake in some of the programs. There's 2 studios going on at all times. There's a lot of shows, a lot of good, interesting people in there. You can learn a lot of things, and more so, you could contribute a lot of things that are helpful to others. It's a sharing thing. The world is sharing.
It's beautiful, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot. You know, guys, I really want to, while I still have that humor right there, there's something there's a little audio clip I want to play before I forget. And I hope everyone finds this as humorous as I did. This was a gentleman at the airport. They were interviewing people, asking them questions related to UFOs, if they believed in UFOs. And I just want to let you know, this gentleman, he might have had a couple drinks on the plane. Maybe not. Maybe he didn't. And maybe he just has a great insight on things. But I do want to let everyone know, because it may go fast. I really enjoy the fact that he refers to Area 51 as Air Force One. All right, so this is going to be pretty good. I hope it plays here, guys. Let's see here.
What do you think? Do you believe in UFOs?
Oh yeah, yes sir, definitely. They're out there, man. I seen them. I've been out there, Aurora, Texas. They got them little graves and stuff. Yeah, I've been out there, and oh no, I'm planning a trip. We're going out to like Arizona or something and figure something out. Or not Arizona, what was it? Yeah, it was Arizona, right? Air Force One, where they found all that stuff. I got pictures of Aurora. I seen grave sites. They're out there, man, and I'm flying in the plane. I'm always hallucinating, but who really knows what I'm looking at? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but there's no proof of this. Just people's accounts.
You're right. There's no proof, but I mean, there's no proof of Jesus or, people go in the restroom until they tell you about it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just kind of the way I see things.
All right, so you believe it then?
Oh, definitely.
Do you think there's like little green men out there?
No little green men, sir.
No? Well, what do you think there is out there?
Who knows, dude? They could be made of water. I don't even know.
Water?
Water, man. You heard the man. Water. They could be made of anything. Extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrial, you mean?
Extraterrestrial.
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 There you go.
Whoa, my goodness. I was
The
dying
fall
laughing
of Western
over here.
civilization right there in 2 minutes.
Oh my goodness. But on the flip side, this is who they would put on the news normally. Like instead of
Pretty much.
who
Pretty
knows,
much.
they might have spoken to 10 very intellectual people that gave reasonable answers. But
it wouldn't have been nearly as entertaining as that.
oh my goodness, I got such a good kick out of it when I heard it. Oh my goodness.
The video is actually even better if
Oh,
you get
man.
a chance to check it out on YouTube. Like he fits the part, man. He does.
Yeah, I mean, this, I think I have a little. He said, what did he say? He said, you don't even know someone uses the restroom until they tell you about it. That was his comparison. It's like, but you don't know. Hold on, let's see if we got it here.
I'm flying in the plane. I'm always hallucinating, but who really knows what I'm looking at? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but there's no proof of this. Just people's accounts.
You're right. There's no proof, but I mean, there's no proof of Jesus or, people go in the restroom until they tell you about it. You know what I mean?
Oh boy. Well, hopefully that's the last time we see him on the news, unless
like a little
unless
scat.
it's the cop show or something. He might have had a great flight. I mean, he told you he was hallucinating. Well, who knows? That was good though. I had a good kick out of that. It's always fun. Having a little fun in the UFO community. I meant no harm to the diehard serious UFO people. I am still your friend. I am just trying to bring a little humor into the world.
Hey, even that's a lot more prevalent than we'd like. So, right?
Oh God, I had
No
such
need to
a kick out of it.
apologize, Joe.
Oh, man, I had such a good time. I can't even tell you. I mean, it's very, very seldom I find myself all alone laughing out loud. And I saw that guy. I almost fell over. Oh, it said, that's what we're coming to.
That was the whole big buzz this week. That there was two of these strange triangle planes flying. I think one was in Kansas or Wichita, and one was in Texas or something. But one of them was photoshopped, and it's making the rounds all over the place. And the Photoshop one comes out and says this was done in 15 minutes. Just to show that it can. And people were still passing around all the same photo, not realizing that it had already been debunked. But it's just like, guys, let's get everybody on the same page here. Start passing this around. But it's possible that all this could be hoaxed out, and it's once it hits the web, boom, everybody's got it, and it goes viral, and then you have to clear it off the table because it turns out to be people hoaxing it.
Oh.
Well, people accuse, people saw my video 3 years ago. A lot of people pointed it as CGI.
Well, the thing is, people who've been doing it for a while, you can differentiate. When you see a video, you know what you're, if you're watching the real deal, if you're watching a hoax, pretty much.
Very true.
And frankly, I keep telling everybody, a triangle, a triangle airframe is, you don't need to be aerodynamic in space. There's not a lot of need for that. So whatever that is, that's probably one of ours.
Well, there was some talk about a triangle craft this week, wasn't there? I saw a pretty good picture floating around this week and much discussion on it.
I think that's what Dave's talking about.
Yeah.
Now that one had this one. I saw a picture of it. I'm assuming it was the same picture I saw several times. It had strong trails coming out of the back of that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It was Norio Hayakawa. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I saw it on your Facebook page, Dave.
Oh yeah. Well, no, Norio Hayakawa had it up, and Norio's always poking his fingers in everybody's eye because he's old school UFO. He has a pretty good grip on it, where the people that are on his page don't really understand who Norio really is. But people were wailing on him, and I'm just like, yeah, you could stop wailing on Norio. He was right, because boom, and I put the one where the guy says this was photoshopped in 15 minutes, on his page, and people are all like, oh wow, man. And I was like,
Well, Tim, before we go too far, I hope Aaron calls in.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't cross information with him, which is likely. Guys, like I said, he's really living off the grid. So it's almost like snail mail. I have to send him a message and a couple days in advance to give him a little buffer time to get it. and I'm cool with that. Like I said, he's a great guy. He's a great guy, and he's now has a child. I think their child's like 2 years old now, and I really wanted to ask him questions about because I think he's even done away with plugging into the grid electrically. I think he's making his own, and I was reserved on my questions to him prior. I wanted to do it live on the air. So that's the type of program we have here at Researchers Radio. Hopefully he'll still call in.
I didn't realize it, Joe, but if you can convert your house to 12 volts DC, and I didn't realize it, but they put out like a whole line of washers and dryers and all kinds of stuff like that for your house for 12 volts. I mean, you could use solar panels if you had a big enough array and a big enough battery storage, and you could very easily live off it pretty good.
Yeah, I have a 150 watt solar panel. It's probably something like maybe 2 foot by 4 foot, something like that, and it's connected to a 12 volt marine battery, a deep cycle battery, and I have a 1500 watt power inverter in my garage, and pretty much anything I do in my garage, I plug into that. And it's anytime I plug into it, it has juice. But I could plug anything. I could plug power saw into it, TV, anything, a refrigerator. But I can't do all of those at once. Of course, I think 1500 watts is something maybe like I could do 12 amps. I think something like that. So, but it's pretty cool to do that whole setup. I did that 2 years ago, and it cost me, I think it was a little less than 200. But I know every time I plug into this thing, it's free electricity, and it's great when the power goes out. I tell you.
I do the same thing for the mountain house. I have a battery bank, and it stays charged. And if we have a bad storm or something, I can just kick off the main breaker, use the inverter and latch onto both sides of the panel and go.
Man, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. You have a setup like that. You just had a nice weekend up at a town up in the sticks, didn't you?
Yeah, it still hasn't. The spring hasn't popped up there. I mean, it's still looking pretty wintry up there. I was kind of surprised.
It is full blown summer here. It's crazy. Gary probably knows. Gary arrived in town today. It was probably 90 degrees for God's sake.
Really?
It was hot. I rarely sunburn, but I got it today. I got it.
Yeah, we're still in the 60s here, Joe.
Oh no! Oh God, no! It's hot. It's hot. As a New Yorker, Gary's probably saying it's no big deal, but being from up north, this is hot.
I'll take 60s.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, it was in the 30s, so I'm happy.
Gary's probably outside on his back deck right now at 70 degrees, relaxing.
Oh, that's nice up there, man. Here, it's a nice ocean breeze going in.
You're making them very jealous, Gary, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I couldn't afford it if I didn't run it out all summer.
So, Tim,
Yes,
before the break, I wanted to get to this, but we're going to have to get to it after the break, obviously. And I know Dave had some cool stuff to talk about as well, but
a couple things in current events.
Yeah, why don't you just start it off for yourself there?
Sure. There's a couple things that we were talking about. We wanted to just comment on the show. I'm sure everybody's heard about the Bureau of Land Management, the whole scenario out in Nevada with the Bundy Ranch. Well, there's been a turn on that, and we wanted to just run this down. Basically, there's a Texas rancher. Goes by the name of Lane Chapman. He has 140 acres of land that he's been paying taxes on, and his family has for over a century. The Bureau of Land Management saying that it is actually public land. But basically what's happening here is it appears that it's another real reach and overstep by the federal government, in my opinion. But Mr. Chapman says it is private property, and he has deeds to back it up. The BLM is basically stating that based on a court decision over a border dispute between two private landowners. That 140 acres was never actually his. It's not his, and it never was his. But he has paper to prove it that it is, and it's just another example of the federal government at this point really overstepping and trying to take away our private property rights. And I just think it stinks. And
land grab.
Yeah, it just stinks, and it's gotta. This has really got to end. I mean, this country, it was, look, if it's your private property, you own it, you're paying taxes on it, for God's sake. What are they doing? Really? I mean, look, 140 acres to the federal government is nothing. But this guy, he actually, the difference between him and the Bundy Ranch scenario is that he actually does own it. He's paying taxes on it. And I just think it stinks.
Well, what is it really boiling down to? I know it's all going to come down to it's all going to be a legal matter. It's really sorting out the who's who and where's what with the paperwork. Mm-hmm. But it's really coming down to the historical who had it first, really, right?
Well, his family's owned it since like the 1870s or 1880s, sometime around there, and he's been paying taxes on it for over a century. His family has. And yeah, I mean, they're really just stretching the boundaries of what the federal government can do. Like, the federal government doesn't own enough land as it is. In fact, I think
it's not supposed to own land. Yeah.
Right. I think that land would be better suited given back to the states, and then the states could do what they had to do with it. I mean, even if it was just to sell it to private landowners, that's fine.
There's a lot of places out west where if you own the land, even the fact that you own the land, the government owns the mineral rights to your land.
Oh, that's right.
It's something's defective. That's a real defective law. It's on your property. You're paying taxes.
What is it? Just homestead
state? If I find any gold or silver on my property in New York State, it is property of the state of New York.
Right, that's not yours. You're in the Empire State.
Right. Awful.
Right, you pay a tremendous amount of taxes to live on your land.
You're not kidding.
No, it's ridiculous. I tell my parents to get out of Dodge all day long. It's amazing.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah, it's retarded, the kind of taxes going up here.
Go ahead, Gary. Sorry about that, buddy.
I'm sorry. You made me think of something that's really important to me as a pilot. I can tell you about another government agency that's going out of control here and going renegade. It's the Customs and Border Protection, the CBP. I belong to a pilots organization called AOPA. It's about 450,000 members of it, thank God.
Sure.
And anyway, it's been many reports in the last couple of years about innocent general aviation pilots being detained and searched with no probable cause. It's just crazy stuff. It's just a renegade agency is going crazy, and there's nobody's overseeing them, I guess.
There's something else that just came out, Gary. I don't know if it's hit down there, but supposedly the EPA now says it's illegal to have a wood-burning stove. Now, up in the mountains where I have my house in western Pennsylvania, I mean, everybody has a wood stove. So what's happening here? They're trying to keep us away from the stuff that we can actually warm our house with for next to nothing during the wintertime. And now we have to use either the natural gas or the biofuel or the petrofuels in order to heat our houses in the wintertime. Yeah. So,
well, you're onto something there, Dave. You're right. They are doing that. You know what they're also doing, and this is my eyes saying this, and I've heard this from other people have said this, that they're dismantling really industries. I mean, if you look at it this way, the whole Bundy Ranch situation, and I know that's gone in a lot of different directions as of recent, but the fact of the matter is that all started because of a tortoise. Apparently the land was, I guess there was some endangered tortoise, a desert tortoise, and so they made that entire area federal land. But the type of federal land it was because it was, a protected land. And then there's all different types of federal land, federal-owned land. But when it's protected, the EPA steps in. One of these federal bureaucracies, and they put all sorts of regulation on it, and they kill the industries that are there. That includes the grazing that the Bundys had with the cattle. That includes look at the coal miners. The coal industry is being dismantled. The fishing industry being dismantled by the government, by regulation. It's really horrible.
Well, that's why they're saying that the guys out in the Bundy area, that they weren't signing the contracts because they're like, it's signing away our livelihood. They're like, there used to be, 25 ranchers out here doing this. She goes, there's only 2 out here doing it now because of all these regulations,
Yeah.
And it looks like the feds went out there and shot his cattle and mass buried it, and then they tried to do a racist slant by editing one of his little talks, and it turned out that once you watch the whole video, he wasn't saying anything racist at all. The Black Marines decided to go down there and give him a hand, and that was the other thing. 30,000 militias showed up, and that's what needs to happen from here on out. I mean, the government's out of control, and when it's out of control, everybody needs to stand together and put an end to it.
And it's funny. It's funny that what you mentioned, that anytime if your ideals or your whatever it is you're doing doesn't agree with, or it doesn't jive with what the federal government or the powers that be are really saying or what they want, then you're a racist. They really do pull the race card all the time. And I just feel like they're overstepping, and it just seems that if it's not their fault, it's what's the other one? It's the sequester's fault, and that goes back a couple of years actually.
According to Harry Reid, we're domestic terrorists.
Yeah, if you're a patriot,
the real terrorists, they've got training camps and Al Qaeda training camps in Oregon and stuff like that, and they're calling the citizenry of the United States the domestic terrorist. I mean, something's gone horribly wrong.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, it's funny hearing words like that from Harry Reid, running in there, because really, here's what I saw. I know there was a lot going on, but from just Joe Public guy who tunes in, sees a video online, you see a bunch of agents beating up some civilians, tasing a few of them. Then it gets a little worse. There's some bumping of the chests, maybe some more tasering, and then they get in their vehicles and they leave. No medical attention, no arrests. It's just, usually if you're tasing someone, there's either an arrest or medical attention.
Mm-hmm.
And or especially when it's a pregnant woman or anyone for that matter. Let's be real. Let's be real. And I'm just seeing, and it was so overwhelming to me. I was saying, is that real? Like, could that really happen? Could they just tase some people and leave? I guess so. Sure can.
They were stopping people off the Pennsylvania Turnpike. The article was out, I don't know, a few months back. But they were asking people to pull over and give them a swab sample from their mouth.
That's right.
And people were like, what? I'm just like, I'd be like, I want your badge number now,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how your laws are, Dave, but Tim, in New York,
they're pressing the envelope. They're seeing exactly how much we'll take, and I don't think they really realize we're at the breaking point right now.
What it is? You're right, Dave. You're onto something right there. It is. There is a lot of and there's these what they're calling militia groups that are popping up and really showing up to these types of things, but making themselves known and saying, hey, we're not going to stand for this crap. It's about time that you guys stop this. And I feel that the biggest problem, or at least one of the biggest problems, is these career politicians. These guys that are like Harry Reid, he's become a billionaire, or at least close to a billionaire. No one really knows how much money the guy's got, but if you're a senator, you should not be making that kind of money. I don't think that. I feel that if we were back to a system where you had term limits and you could actually just, be from the private sector and actually have some skin in the game.
I would just like their job as a congressman or senator to be their primary interest as employment. Because if you're as a senator making 200 grand, but your other business you're making 38 million or 380 million. Clearly, which one's more important? I mean,
Yeah,
it's really simple.
Even with that, though, Joe, I still see a problem with that because when these guys are in there for 20, 30 years, well, they get corrupt and they pull too many strings. And that's a problem.
String pullers, eh?
Yeah.
Yep. They sure do. But what's to be done about that?
What's to be done?
Right. I mean, it's really across the board.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's
Well, supposedly
we need a whole new constitution.
Supposedly Reed was trying to get that land for next to nothing so he could sell it to a Chinese solar company for pretty tidy little profit.
Well, I'm not the least bit shocked at all. I'm not the least bit shocked because my personal opinion is we've already lost so much to countries like China that are no longer interested or say like we know you will never be able to pay this much money back. We want some rights, whether it's considered diplomatic territories or whatever, because if they give China let's say 100 square miles and it's diplomatic territory, that's a section of China in the middle of the United States.
And you're right on the money with that, Joe. And I wouldn't doubt that because what most people don't know is that China doesn't have much arable land. Their land doesn't really produce a lot of food, and they need to feed a lot of people. So they getting a nice little spot in the United States growing belt.
I mean, we're no longer the superpower. We're not in charge. Someone like China could easily be. They hold a lot over our heads. We owe them a lot of money, and I really doubt we're ever going to pay that off. Let's be real. And I think they all knew that too, making those deals. That it's going to come down to we're going to have to surrender something. It's no doubt. I was curious about China as soon as they started entering the G8s and the G12s because they had nothing to gain before that.
Well, something's got to be done. We've already sold our pretty much our country's soul to these other foreign governments, and that's
unfortunately
just
I'm really starting to feel that might be the case.
Guys, this is the world that we live in. Historically, everybody knows that democracies fail, usually after a couple hundred years. It starts kind of feeding on itself. When people realize they can vote themselves, money from the treasury, it's pretty much done at that point in the game. And everybody knows it, and it's been like that. Our country was founded as a republic, on laws. And somewhere along the line, we jumped the ship to a democracy.
When do you think that happened? In the 1850s?
If our best and brightest don't know these facts, and these guys are supposed to be the ones running the country, I mean, what does that tell you? I mean, something's wrong right off the get-go. If everybody knows that democracies fail, then and that our country was founded as a republic, why are we asking to be in something that we know historically always fails? Is a mob rule form of government. So why do we have it?
To bleed it dry.
It's this prevailing insanity that kind of sits under the rest of the world. You're like, what is going on here? I mean, I think that's what everybody's asking. What is going on here?
Well,
because
I do. It almost is if it's being milked.
It's a passing of the guard, really. I mean, look, Woodrow Wilson was part of the problem. I think Joe was asking when did we jump ship? It does go back. We'll just say this much. Whether you're right or left, it doesn't matter. Whether you're conservative or Democratic, I don't care. All I'm saying is 100 to 150 years ago, the progressive movement started in this country. And it really basically was a chipping away of, the worst part about it is our Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is what's supposed to protect us from a tyrannical government. And that's really what they're trying to convince us, that we don't need those bills, the Bill of Rights. So you hear it on news stations all the time. People saying, "Oh, what about the Second Amendment? You know, we don't need the Second Amendment. It's not an important one. It was just put in there. It's outdated." But it's just a matter of these people. They're trying to disarm us. They're trying to take away our property, our rights to. I mean, how else could they do it other than slowly and quietly? Really, you know, devil's greatest trick, convincing the world he didn't exist.
The Constitution is the only thing keeping the wolves at bay right now, and people better get on this. People better get on the stick and start enforcing their Constitution, because it is being whittled away like the frog in the pot of cold water while you're warming it up. And before we know it, the water's going to be boiling and we're going to be toast. And it's time to, it's time for people to snap out of it and start, fighting for their real freedoms and their voice.
It is an uphill battle.
Well,
big time.
Well, I think a lot of people are really coming around, because it's the veil's being pulled back on so many different things, and people are just upset.
The problem is that so much damage has been done already, and they've been plotting this for the past 100 years. Healthcare was that's like
that's a crowning gem right there.
Right.
Yeah.
It really is, because it gets their hands into every aspect of our lives, and whether we know it or not, we don't even know, because honestly, it's sure Obamacare has been rolled out, and yes, we're seeing the aftermath of it, but we really aren't yet. We haven't seen all of it yet. We haven't seen the health care system collapse upon itself, because hey, it's going to happen. It cannot sustain itself.
Well, when help me out here, guys. When did the Republican Party come to be?
When did it come to be?
Yeah, when did the Republican Party begin?
That's a good question.
Because these two major parties we have today, they were not here originally.
No, there was several political parties actually in the beginning, but
right.
I'm gonna Google it.
Because I'm just trying to figure out when the Republican Party or Democratic Party really came to be. When this all really changed, without having to have the argument of Freemasons.
It says here mid 1800s.
That's about right. Yeah, like 1850s.
Yeah, well, I mean,
sounds about right to me. Yeah,
and unfortunately, Woodrow Wilson was a native New Jerseyan, but he was a complete dirtbag, and
yes,
that was part. And the funny thing is, you have like FDR and you have Woodrow Wilson, and it's like at the end of their life when they're on their deathbed, they're like, I don't think that was a real wise decision, me doing that. It's just like they look back, they knew what they were doing the whole time, and they were pretty much subverting our system. And then looking back on it, like, yeah, I think I screwed up. And it's just like,
Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican president, 1861.
Share 6 in the chat room just threw that in there too. I don't know. I think she might have beat you to that.
She probably did.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Republican Party was formed basically because the Southern Democrats weren't going along with the whole slavery, releasing the slaves type stuff, and that's why that party was born. It was basically to enforce the Constitution across the country, because it wasn't being enforced, although that the proclamation had been made.
Right. That's very interesting.
And you wouldn't know that today if you watch the news. Depending on the station that you watch, you would think that Abraham Lincoln was a Democrat. That wool pulled right over your eyes. Most people don't realize that.
Yeah, most people don't realize the whole civil rights, bill would have never passed if it wasn't for the Republicans, because guys like Al Gore's dad was voting against it, and Byrd, the guy who died, and they were all creaming all over him. He was, a no vote on it. So what's the problem is that the Republicans don't really control much of the media other than maybe Fox, and that's, as a conservative, I don't really consider that a conservative station.
No, it's not.
I mean, that's they've lost the messaging. I mean, they just don't. They're getting it out in talk radio and one news outlet on television. So,
yeah.
And if anything should have wised everybody up was how all the news stations during the 2008 elections cupcaked, Obama. I mean, nobody.
He didn't get one fastball. Everybody threw him softballs, lobs.
Yeah, Bill O'Reilly was a little sharp, but not. I could have wailed on him, but let's face it, that we all know at this point in the game that before they come onto the show, it's already scripted what they're going to ask and what to stay away from, and it's just like that's what we've come down to. It should be no holds barred. If you want to get in the public arena, you get anything thrown at you. You don't come into a news station and dictate what we can and cannot ask you because you're going to get the whole gamut.
I hear that.
Yeah.
So we're in the final of the 4 half hours we have here, and I want to keep this rolling. Although I think we might have to end up talking about something political, as much as I steer away from it, just because I don't know anything about it. because I'll take the Socratic approach. I just choose not to dirty my hands with such nonsense.
You see, that's the problem with me, is that I don't like to identify myself as either Republican or Democrat or even independent, because you stand behind one. When it comes election time, that's my guy. I'm standing behind him. I'm for him all the way. But like I said before, these are career politicians, and I just feel like that model needs to be changed. I don't like the idea that they.
Well,
let me ask you guys this before I.
Sorry, boys.
I'm
Tea Party, so
I know
neither one of the parties like us.
So let me ask you guys this then before I change the topic, and I might regret this question. Is Jeb Bush going to be the next president?
Oh, God help us.
No.
I mean, I understand we all are saying no as a vote, but George Bush didn't win either, and he was president.
Mark Levin was saying, he goes, "What? There's only 2 families in America that can run this country: the Clintons or the Bushes."
Yeah.
I listen to him. He's excellent. He's one of the.
It's time for some fresh, forward thinkers who are constitutionalists. And let's put a constitutionalist in the Oval Office, and we'll see how that goes. Because we haven't seemed to have gotten one in the last 20 years.
But now this next president somehow is going to have to be a relative of Bush or Clinton. I mean, they're all tied back to the same people. As
remember earlier, Joe,
a little 12-year-old girl proved.
You would ask, what do we do about all this? The power, these power grabs and the system. Do you remember earlier you said that?
Of course, yes.
Started enforcing the treason laws.
Oh, my goodness.
My girlfriend bought me one of Mark Levin's books, his newest book, The Liberty Amendments, and I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet, but apparently the book does have his idea as to how to fix it, which is limiting term limits on most of these guys, and that's one thing I'm very much for. He has a lot of other ideas as well. I don't think Supreme Court justices should be there for life. I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
Everybody knows absolute power absolutely corrupts. That's pretty simple.
Well, I hope to return to this topic and include the history of these families, specifically the Bush family.
Sure.
It's absolutely incredible, and there's a few things that it's commonly talked about, like Prescott, but there's a few things that people don't commonly hear that are quite amazing and change the course of all American history in major ways. With that said, Dave, did you have anything that you wanted to mention in regards to our current Pope? I don't know if you had anything you wanted to talk about on that. We mentioned it prior, but I don't know if you had anything.
Yeah, well,
if you put work into it, I wanted you to have your time. That's all.
No, I mean, what we were discussing. The fragment came out basically saying that Jesus had a wife, or Jesus's wife, or something to that effect.
Yeah,
but,
this one is this one is being bumped pretty hard, man, because there's a lot of uh, there's a lot of universities saying this one is showing no signs of forgeries and the datings are correct.
Yeah, that's when I passed. That's when I passed you over Mike Heiser, who's like
Right.
internationally known, Semitic text like expert. Basically, had shot it down, and somebody else had already shot it down for obvious flaws in it. So, but see, the thing is that guys who are in my field are we already know that this type of stuff is going to start coming hot and heavy at this point in the game because that's something else that has to be chipped away. But I mean, if none of there's a reason why there's four gospels. It's because they can actually be, they know that these are actually authentic. We can verify these. And none of those guys mention Jesus has a wife. And if you look through those texts, Jesus' wife is usually referred to it. The wife is the church. So it's, there's a lot of, wordplay, going on in these texts. But evidently this was obviously, not something that the professionals took seriously. And there you have it.
Share 6 is mentioning a bunch of things about Prescott Bush, and she's really getting me fired up. I want to tear into the Prescott Bush topic right now. Share soon enough. It'll probably have to be like 3 or 4 weeks, but I hope to get onto that soon. We do have some authors coming on in the next few weeks. Linda Zimmerman, as I already said. Joseph Atwell will be coming on the following week. There were some other things that we wanted to get to. Tim, was there anything else you wanted to mention before we move on?
Well, there was something interesting. I thought we were talking about a lot of domestic issues here, but this is funny. I don't know. I just thought this was interesting. There's a company called Vivos, and I found this on CBS New York's website. They did a piece. There's a luxury bunker. The Cold War apparently is back, and they have this. I guess in the event of a nuclear war or whatever you might want to call it, it's a luxury bunker, 65 feet underground, 10,000 square foot facility, reinforced concrete. It'll serve 80 people, including anyone you might need to survive: doctors, dentists, ex-military, people with necessary skills to have a functioning community. Top-end kitchen appliances, swimming pool, gym, movie theater. $50,000 per adult and $35,000 per child 16 or younger. Looks pretty interesting to me. They're building another one in upstate New York, apparently, but it's a little out of my price range, so I'll stick to my plan B, which is a work in progress.
Before we move on, guys, I should also mention, Dave, I don't know if you met him. This gentleman, Michael Parker, is a friend of mine. He was on the program once, but I don't think you were on that week. Michael Parker is, I don't want to give his job away, but he works in Los Angeles in the TV film industry, and he is on the production end of a popular television program. However, he's going to be coming here to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. It's going to be, well, for him, it'll be Pacific time, 9 p.m. on Thursdays, starting in a month from now. That's pretty good. That's something we're involved with. I'll be producing that program for him. So look for us Thursday nights too, folks. Dave, he's someone that I really wanted to have you and him talk to. I think the two of you really hit it off. And over the next month, I hope to do that. I'm hoping to actually even have him join us for a little bit next week. And hopefully he will. I haven't talked to him over the weekend. But I'm very much forward looking to him coming on the show. He's also done the television program for Destination America, and he went. Dave, maybe you've seen this program where He was down in Texas investigating the Marfa lights, and it's pretty cool episode. It's a pretty cool show. He's a talented guy, and I think he's going to be a great addition to the channel, and I'm proud of him. He's a good friend of mine. So welcome aboard, Michael.
Woo, Michael.
Woohoo, woohoo. And what else can I talk about? I got about 20 minutes left. Well, that's enough to tear into some amazing nothingness facts, right? First, I'd really like to say it's very rare that I speak highly. No, I take that back because I'm not going to speak highly. I'm just going to say it outright. The Windsor family, the royal family in England, Prince Charles, and I've mentioned this before, and I don't know if it was on this program. I know I did a daytime show a few weeks ago with Mark Eddy from the station, and I spoke about it. But when I was doing my history thing there, and I know I told Tim a little of this, I kept coming into Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, historically, and I really didn't want to because of all the stories that come with it. You know, I really didn't want to have to weave myself in there. However, I couldn't deny the fact that I had been studying that King Matthias, the king that was holding him captive. What's interesting, the story from King Matthias is much different than the history story of Vlad the Impaler. Because, hello, did I lose you?
I'm back now.
Oh, sorry about that. Vlad the Impaler, as we all know, was imprisoned, and he was tortured for many years, and he was let go, and he was killed. However, he was being held at King Matthias's castle, and during this treacherous time of torture that he went through, he was able to start a family with the king's cousin living in the castle and have 2 children that were very finely schooled by the king. And I really had to know these children. It was 2 sons, and I really had to know because they played a part in what I was looking at. And the 2 children were well schooled, well educated, and then in the year 1532, the Holy Roman Emperor offered them a decree, and it was the first time in over 1,000 years that a family was now given a royal title. All the other families had been and had these titles for a very long time.
So Vlad was venerated. I mean, he wasn't a villain in Europe. He was fighting the Muslims and winning.
Right.
So
yeah, he was a real sneaky guy. But you know, there's so many stories with it because, you know, from King Matthias' side, it really just looked like they kind of ripped off the church, like they took money to fight and didn't. And in turn, he blamed it on Vlad and said, you know, I have him prisoner, and because they were relatives. They actually just split Hungary down the middle, and you had one half, I had the other, per se. And you know, King Matthias had like 28 castles, but anyway, I had to find these sons, so I was trying to trace them back to modern day to find out who these people are. And it was real simple because the person living today had already made a fantastic press release claiming he was a direct descendant, and it was Prince Charles and Queen Elizabeth. They said they're direct bloodline descendants, and it turns out Prince Charles has been making many trips to Transylvania and Romania, and there's the sacred forest there that he's now been donating a lot of money to protect, and he's now purchased 2 castles in the area and has been spending a lot of time there. And yeah, it's pretty interesting that
getting back to his Transylvanian roots.
He really is, man. They really are. And then Prince Charles went out and he went and wrote himself a book. And I'd have to say, I do appreciate the topic. It's written on harmony, and it's not just a lot of the harmonies we hear today. This This is universal harmony, and I know many people are probably sick and tired of hearing me talk about the map, but this is exactly what he's talking about, and he's very clear about it, and he's
Damn it, Joe! Again.
He quotes. He's trying to bring back a classical knowledge that can restore the world through a rediscovery of true human knowledge. And it's a book on sacred geometry and harmony, just not harmony like simple meditation harmony, but the sacred geometry harmony.
Is that what they're employing in the UK right now?
I don't think the UK is even aware. I mean, do the royal family, do they go to church? Do they attend the Church of England?
I think they bring the church.
I'm sure they have to.
I don't know.
Their seats are on supposedly on one of the stones from King David's.
That's what I was going to say. The other side of the track back their genealogy is real simple. Is they're from a very, very, very strong Jewish lineage. So they're.
Don't tell anybody.
They are. I mean, the tribe of Judah's lion is on their gates to the castle, for God's sake. I'm just curious. I'm not in England. I just don't know if they go to church or not. I don't know.
Westminster Abbey are shaking.
Well, I know Prince Charles's favorite church is the how do they pronounce it? The Chartres? Is that how they pronounce it?
No.
Chartres. It's from the thousands, 11th century. It's a church. It's a Virgin Mary church, but it's all a sacred geometry church with Physicia, Pisces, and back to Greek goddess Sophia, things like that. So it's not a, Eastern Holy Roman Empire Catholic Church. And that's
for some reason, I have a feeling that the Christian church in Europe is probably taking a pretty good beating. It's probably a far different animal than it is over here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've said before that Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Tepes, the reason his family kind of just arrived on the scene out of nowhere was they suffered. They came out of Constantinople. His father was a ruler, a powerful man in Constantinople, and when that fell in the 1450s, they just fled a little bit over, where their hereditary lines had been on his mother's side, which was Wallachia. So when Constantinople fell, that's why Hungary, they had no problem dividing it in half, and they lost their leaders. They had the same bloodline ruling Hungary for several hundred years, and King Matthias with Vlad, they elected King Matthias king, but it was the first time they had a king that was not of this other lineage. But they really had strong feelings for this king, even though he was very young. He was probably 12 or so when he was elected king, was because he was a direct descendant, and they had the book at the time of directly from Attila the Hun right to this king. So
12.
King Matthias in Hungary in the late 1400s was a direct descendant of Attila, thus Hungary. That's what they were claiming, and they put on a fierce battle with both sides, the Turks and the Roman Empire, because they were accepting, one point they accepted 40,000 gold coins to fight the Turks, and they wrote a letter to the Pope saying how they killed over 20,000 people, burned them alive, and crucified these men, women, and children. And they got a letter back from the Pope saying basically, "Great job, keep it up, and we're proud of you, advance in the name of Rome." But what had happened was they had never done any of that. They just kind of kept the money, or more or less, I should say, the money is unknown wherever it went. But like I did mention, King Matthias at the end of his life, he did have 28 castles in his country, and
Wouldn't hurt.
and he had none in the beginning. So he did pretty good. You know, he did all right. I mean, I'm just assuming someone was taken off the top, you know.
Hey, Joe, Patrick English in the chat room.
Pat Manan.
He says, and I hope this is right. I guess he's referring to the pronunciation of that word you were talking about. He says, Joe, in French, chart. In English, often charters.
That makes sense, but I really didn't want to say that.
Awesome.
It's actually, it is chart.
That's great.
Okay. Thank you very much, my friend Patrick English. That's my man right there. Everyone, if you're in the chat room or go to the chat room, say hello to Patrick and Vaubert. Say hello to Vaubert for me and share. I remember a TV show when I was a kid and they used to call out everyone's name and I used to get so excited about that. I just had a flashback moment about it. So did you guys, Dave, I know you might have saw this. Tim, I don't know if I told you. And I know we're running a little late in the program, and I wanted to bring Gary back in, but we're running out of time. I'm sorry, Gary. I want you to come in, but I'm going to try to ask you more questions. But
sure.
Real quick, I'll address this one to you, Gary. Gary, did you know that Sweden this week opened a coffin of an 850-year-old king?
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that, Gary.
I didn't know that.
Oldest in Europe.
That's what I'm here for. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, he was still well intact. They had opened him one time before, I think in the year 2000, and it was pretty cool though. He still had his crown, which is of course still in great shape since it's gold. But it's pretty interesting, you know. 850 years ago, it's pretty unique to still have your king's grave intact.
Oh.
I think we got music coming in here, guys.
There it is.
Gary Travis, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks, Gary.
You're welcome back anytime, my man.
Well, thank you. It was my pleasure.
Everyone, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for more action here at freedomslips.com.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Hi, this is Bo.
And this is Rocco.
And the Bo and Rocco Show is here to offer insight into legal and lawful remedies. Our goal is to remain free and help others remain free in an ever-increasing police-like state. With the help of our guests, we try to answer questions such as what went wrong and what can we do about it.
So tune into Revolution Radio at www.freedomslips.com Wednesday nights, 10 to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to listen to the Bo and Rocco Show.
You don't need to expect us.
We're already here.
Revolution Radio.
Every Tuesday evening on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we present our goddess spiritual warrior, Kathy Bilski.
I command. I call to the architect of the universe's divine creators and ask for permission to quantum leave the world in all life forms on all planes and dimensions.
some more than speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Bridgeton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps.
Enjoy your
extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another?
Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
Come
trouble.
on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Hello, everyone. Good day, good evening, good morning, depending where you may be. My name is Joe Kiernan. This is Researchers Radio Live. I'm very happy to be here today. I have Tim C. with us producing. We have returning to the program, Mr. Dave Stinnett, hosting the show as well. And also we're going to be speaking to a good friend of the show, a good friend of mine as well, Mr. Gary Travis. And he has a very interesting story to tell us about some local occurrences that I may have been part of. We'll get to him in just one moment. Everyone, I'm happy to tell us Dave is back. And Dave, how's it going up there, buddy?
What's up, Joe?
Man, how was the event? So tell us, how was the turnout? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, the conference is banging. Actually, I think it's probably one of the best conferences I've ever put on. I think, all the speakers were it was just a really good mix of personalities with the speakers, and everybody was very cool and very gracious. but because we're kind of old school UFO, so we put some people up at a local friend's house who's my my coordinator. So it's very homey, and people actually get to talk. And we had a speakers dinner the night before, where just basically some of the Congress comes in, and everybody has a big buffet dinner, and you get actually to rub elbows and pick people's brains. But it was a nice mix of like secular researchers and biblical researchers, and everybody was keeping an open mind, and it was a hell of a good time. So
a rare event, a rare event to have that many good minds in a room.
Well, it's funny because we had press in the audience. We weren't aware of it, and I guess the editor for the particular online blog